I saw you nodding your head.
Good evening, and please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website, our podcast, and our YouTube channel. We record in audio only. Feel free to use our podcast on our website along with your Big Book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so you can follow along. And tonight's recap will be on, actually there is no recap, we're doing a blue page read by me. So what that is before the beginning of a new chapter, there's a little insight that you all won't have, but it'll be posted on the screen and I'll read it out loud. And then our study tonight will be on page 136 at the beginning of To the Employers and end on page 139. And it'll end with Salvaging Their Sick Employees. And that will be read by Lisa. And do we have any announcements?
Hi, family. We do. Good evening. My name is Jamie. Very grateful, recovered alcoholic. First, Trish, do you have any announcements? Try unmuting.
Yes, I did, and I just put it in the chat. We will be having a group conscience on March 17th. It's a Monday, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, and the rest of you can just back up to whatever your time zone is. Anyone who has attended or has an interest in the group is welcome to attend the group conscience, but only home group members of record at the time we start are eligible to vote. And that said, if you're ever interested in becoming a home group member, please just let me know by chat and we can get you signed up. And I also just want to touch real quick. 2 weeks ago, we had a service workshop on how to get involved in this group, because it's not just what you see me and Shayna and Jamie doing, but there's a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff that people can get involved in. So if you're interested in getting involved, want to know what to do, want to know what else you can do to get involved, but you're not sure if you want to do this, let us know, and we're always happy to jump on Zoom and either set up another service workshop, which we'd like to do one a quarter, or just set one up with you for whoever you are for a quick one-on-one training if there's something specific that you're interested in. Your turn.
Okay, thank you. And we will have a district meeting on the 16th. And Pinky, I will send you and Xavier that information so you guys can attend the district meeting. On the 15th, we are going to have a pre-conference with our delegate, Jimmy Welch, and he is going to be in Pulaski in person, but we're also going to do that as a hybrid. I'll get the information posted for that. And all of this is leading up to our second quarter assembly that'll be held in Gatlinburg on the 28th, 29th, and 30th, and I'll be going there to attend that as your DCM, which is a great honor to do. And I think that does it for the announcements, but I'd like to welcome everyone who's here for the first time tonight. We're glad to have you.
And I've got one more announcement I forgot about. Since we've got group conscience coming up, that means our group officers will be having a meeting this coming Wednesday at some point on Sunday. We don't have a time schedule yet, but we will text or email you when we know when that's going to be.
So what is it, Wednesday or Sunday? Because you mentioned both days.
It's been a week. Today has been a week.
I know. I know.
The officers meeting on Sunday, March 9th. No time has been set yet. Watch your texts and we will let you know.
Absolutely. Look, watch out in the group text, folks. Okay, let's get on with the show. Good evening, family. My name is Jamie, and I am a very grateful recovered alcoholic. And welcome to the Lewisburg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of meditation followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Shayna. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Hang on. Let me find myself here. Please be aware of any background noises when you are unmuted and sharing is not to distract others or even possibly yourself. We all suggest that we observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. And just a friendly reminder that absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share, and we will call on you in the order that hands are raised.
From the forward to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, to show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are: focus on your breath and posture, breathe in God and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God. Let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study.
And now it's time to bring those spiritual little monks in and let them do what they do best. Enjoy your time with God, folks. And on your screen in front of you is our family's fog light prayer for those of you who wish to join us. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
And let's have our secretary's report.
Trish.
It's Trish. That's right. I was like, wait a minute, who is our secretary? It's Trish. Come on in.
Everybody, my name is Trish and I am your recovered alcoholic secretary. I have asked Stephanie to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Steph.
Hey there, I'm Stephanie, very grateful, recovered alcoholic. Recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered but not cured. that presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime. But we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. Page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
Thank you, Steph. And thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously. Because of this, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a big book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the foreword to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX, of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapsed, and the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can I have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time?
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Everybody, it is so good to see everybody. And the recovered alcoholics fees. These are your potential sponsors. And is anyone celebrating a milestone this week?
Yeah, I reached 8 months.
Congratulations, Brian. And I think Trish is working on a chip for you.
Thank you.
It's coming. It's slow, but it's coming.
It's okay. You know, in the old days, we used to make them walk up front to get one, so it's the same amount of time any way you go.
It's all good. I appreciate it.
And make him have a little speech.
There you are.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Do it, Brian.
Thank you again.
Congratulations, Brian. It has been good to have you with us.
If you should require a big book of your own, we have large print editions that can be sent to you by Buzzard Mail. Delivery time is questionable. Please remember to practice our 7th tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo, or PayPal posted in the chat and on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a big book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. And please visit our website, which is also posted in the chat. Thank you, and see you next week.
Thank you so much, Trish. Thank you, Stephanie, for your service tonight. And from There is a Chapter 2, There is a Solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree, and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the duties and obligations that go with such a responsibility.
And before we begin our study of the Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 5. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 6. please refer to page 562 of Alcoholics Anonymous. And Larry, our traditionalist, come on in.
Hey, I'm Larry, and I'm an alcoholic, and Tradition 6 says, in the short form, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. Long form says, problems of money, property, and authority may easily divert us from our primary spiritual aim. We think, therefore, that any considerable property or genuine use to AA should be separately incorporated and managed, thus dividing the material from the spiritual. An AA group, as such, should never go into business. Secondary aids to AA, such as clubs or hospitals, which require much property and administration, ought to be incorporated and so set apart that, if necessary, they can be freely discarded by the groups. Hence, such facilities ought not use the AA name. Their management should be the sole responsibility of those who financially support them. For clubs, AA managers are usually preferred, but hospitals, as well as other places, are corporations ought to be well outside AA and medically supervised. While an AA group may cooperate with anyone, such cooperation ought never go so far as affiliation or endorsement, actual or implied. An AA group can bind itself to no one. This tradition is, it was there for the purposes that groups not go into business, because in the early years, AA at one time, Bill thought that he might go into business as a hospital and certain areas, and actually take over, take AA and make a business out of AA. He was approached by one of the hospitals, and it was by some of the group members, the first 100, that talked to him and said, "Is this not what we're against? We take it to one another. We keep it simple. We're not. That's why we do things the way we do, so that we don't disturb this thing that is going so well." And he finally talked some sense into Bill, and finally we got this tradition together and realized that for group purpose, our primary purpose is to take the message to the suffering alcoholic, and we do that best one-on-one, not by hospital or rehab centers and stuff. Now, in our groups, when the AA first started having clubhouses and stuff, it was a time that we had to also begin to reframe, and a lot of times our clubhouses was run by AA managers. In other words, AA people ran clubhouses, but it is not necessarily, it does not have to be. Some outside AA members can be on the boards of our clubhouses. So it has to also be outside AA, and it can't have an AA name. It can be a clubhouse, but not, it can't be affiliated. It can have AA groups that go to it, but it can't be affiliated with AA. It's the same way with like intergroup in AA. It's not Alcoholics Anonymous. They're not affiliated with. They are affiliated, but they're not part of AA as such. They are kind of a business. They're not a group, and therefore they are outside of the scope, and they have to stay separate than the groups. And we had a situation just recently with our intergroup. They were having a fundraiser, and everything seemed to be up above board, and it was a fundraiser with a certain national company, and everybody thought that it was a good deal. Most people. I personally wasn't for it. I was one of them that voted against it, but it passed by majority, and they went ahead and took the fundraiser on. And when it all came down to it, what happened was everybody purchased a ticket. They gave their names when they purchased the tickets, and they did not know ahead of time that these names would be publicized on the internet with the AA name as a group, and therefore it was implied that AA was sponsoring it, and plus the anonymity of having first and last names printed on the internet gave all kinds of problems. And we had to withdraw from the fundraiser for the and do a lot of apologies, and it was all because it was implied. We weren't affiliating with this company, but it was implied that we was. And we have to be careful about that kind of stuff. We can't affiliate or even be applied that we are affiliated with a certain area. The AA name has to stay clear from any affiliation. It's important that we investigate before we put our names out there. It was a mistake. It was rectified, and the business apologized for what they did. They didn't realize what anonymity meant to our group, but the damage was done, and we had to make a lot of apologies. Groups and hospitals especially has to be run by medical staff. We are not medical staff. We are not professionals in that staff, in that area. We are one-on-one. We know what alcoholism, because we're alcoholic, and we can work with another alcoholic, but we are not medical staff, and therefore we can't run hospitals. We're not in a position that we can do those kinds of things. There are better suited people for those types of things, and AA realizes that, and AA realizes there are doctors psychiatrists, counselors, and people that are better equipped than just us for those types of jobs. And so that this tradition is very important in AA, and that's all I got.
Thank you, Larry. Excellent job. Thank you for doing the last 3 weeks. And I'm not sure who yet, but somebody else is stepping in to do 7, 8, and 9. And it'll be a mystery until I find out. So, is that you, Marilyn? Okay. Good deal. We'll see you next week then. Thank you. And now it's time for our weekly segment of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of the things we often hear is there are no musts in the program. Kenny, would you come in and tell us what it has to say on, I believe it's page 83 in the second paragraph?
Yes, we must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness would make a skeptic out of anyone.
Thank you so much, Kenny.
Yes, and as we study, please make use of pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book Study Guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
And tonight we are going to start with a blue page, which will be read by me, and then that'll be followed by our study portion, which will be read by Lisa. And again, that's starting on page 136 at the beginning of To the Employers. And we'll go through until page 139, ending at Salvaging Their Sick Employees.
Sorry, I jumped the gun there, Shana. After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back on our study portion where Lisa read tonight. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified. And multi-part questions are simply one-sentence answers split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
So basically in English, what that means is that we are going to read the material once through, then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the questions gives us new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, observations based on what was just read. If you have spiritual experience with this information, please, by all means, feel free to share. Keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, you will hear a timer beep to let you know that your time is finished.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, for example, a sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of our co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group. And tonight, Trish is going to come in and tell us how we got here while I open up the timer.
Hi everybody, I'm still Trish and I am an alcoholic. And how we arrived at this point, we didn't just randomly open the book this morning and say, hey, let's read this. We are actually in our 5th year of being a group, and we're coming up on our 5th year anniversary of being on Zoom. And in this meeting, as you're going to see, or as you're going to hear and experience, we read through the entire Big Book from the title page all the way through page 164 with the question and answer format. And we start on the title page where we find our first promise, how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And we read each page line by line up until 164. We also then read Dr. Bob's Nightmare. We spend 2 weeks on the traditions. During the study, we spend 3 weeks where we go to Appendix 2, or the spiritual experience, when the footnote at the bottom of the page tells us to. But then the last week of our study, week 94, we go back and we spend a week just on that spiritual experience, because spirituality and the God of our understanding is such a big part of our program. And once we hit that week 94, we go back to page 1, or we go back to the title page, and week 1 we start all over again. So it's a 94-week study. Tonight we are on week 78, so we're coming up closing in on the end, but we're not quite there. And for those of you who have been here before, it's great to see you back, and those who are new, welcome, and I hope to see you come back again.
Yes, so before we start the recap, we'll need it's not a recap. Before we start the blue page, we will need 5 or 6 virtual hands raised if you'd like to be one of our answer readers. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it on our website and our YouTube channel.
And, and now I am going to screen share the blue page so you guys know what we're talking about and where it comes from. And this comes from the study guide that we use. And Shane is going to read it.
Yes, thank you. So week 78 is what we are on, as Trish said. This is chapter 10, To the Employers. And this is our introduction page, blue page. The authors of this textbook were far-sighted enough to recognize that as alcoholics sobered up and began to return to a more normal type of life, they would, of course, be returning to the workplace. There is little doubt that any business employing a number of people will have in its midst active alcoholics. It is most easy for us to think of the ordinary contacts we might make in searching for the suffering ones, such as doctors, ministers, attorneys, law enforcement agencies, hospitals, but all too often, one of the places offering the greatest potential is overlooked. That, of course, is the workplace. Some of our members have made certain that the chief executive officer of their place of employment are recipients of the Big Book. In some cases, it is in keeping with their attempt to make amends for their past deeds, or maybe just to try to make what could prove to be a significant contribution to their employer. In any case, it is more than possible that another suffering alcoholic will find our program and thereby be spared from a tragic ending. This is the only chapter that was not drafted by Bill W. The principal author of this section was Hank P., a terminated executive of a large corporation in the northeast part of the country. He tells a little of the story as an introduction to his contribution here. And going back to the doctor's opinion, Dr. Silkworth tells of a case of a pathological mental deterioration. But he added, he adopted the plan outlined in this book. The doctor also admitted he had hardly recognized Hank when he saw him a year later. And that's on page XXI. His story, The Unbeliever, can be found in the original manuscript and the first edition of the Big Book.
Thank you, Shana. And now, Lisa, would you like to come in and read our study portion? Welcome.
Thank you, Jamie. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa. I'm an alcoholic. Chapter 10, To Employers. Among many employers nowadays, we think of one member who has spent much of his life in the world of big business. He has hired and fired hundreds of men. He knows the alcoholic as the employer sees him. His present views ought to prove exceptionally useful to businessmen everywhere. But let him tell you. I was at one time assistant manager of a corporation department employing 6,600 men. One day my secretary came in saying that Mr. B insisted on speaking with me. I told her to say that I was not interested. I had warned him several times that he had but one more chance. Not long afterward, he had called me from Hartford on 2 successive days, so drunk he could hardly speak. I told him he was through, finally and forever. My secretary returned to say that it was not Mr. B on the phone, it was Mr. B's brother, and he wished to give me a message. I still expected a plea for clemency, but these words came through the receiver. I just wanted to tell you Paul jumped from a hotel window in Hartford last Saturday. He left us a note saying you were the best boss he ever had and that you were not to blame in any way. Another time, as I opened a letter which lay on my desk, a newspaper clipping fell out. It was the obituary of one of the best salesmen I ever had. After 2 weeks of drinking, he had placed his toe on the trigger of a loaded shotgun. The barrel was in his mouth. I had discharged him for drinking 6 weeks before. Still another experience. A woman's voice came faintly over long distance from Virginia. She wanted to know if her husband's company insurance was still in force. 4 days before, he had hanged himself in his woodshed. I had been obliged to discharge him for drinking, though he was brilliant, alert, and one of the best organizers I had ever known. Here were 3 exceptional men, lost to the world because I did not understand alcoholism as I do now. What irony, I became an alcoholic myself. And but for the intervention of an understanding person, I might have followed in their footsteps. My downfall cost the business community unknown thousands of dollars, for it takes real money to train a man for an executive position. This kind of waste goes on unabated. We think the business fabric is shot through with a situation which might be helped by better understanding all around. Nearly every modern employer feels a moral responsibility for the well-being of his health, and he tries to meet these responsibilities. That he has not always done so for the alcoholic is easily understood. To him, the alcoholic has often seemed a fool of the first magnitude. Because of the employee's special ability, or of his own strong personal attachment to him, the employer has sometimes kept such a man at work long beyond a reasonable period. Some employers have tried every known remedy. In only a few instances has there been a lack of patience and tolerance. And we, who have imposed on the best of employers, can scarcely blame them if they had been short with us. Here, for instance, is a typical example. An officer of one of the largest banking institutions in America knows I no longer drink. One day he told me about an executive of the same bank who, from his description, was undoubtedly alcoholic. This seemed to be like an opportunity to be helpful. So I spent 2 hours talking about alcoholism, the malady, and described the symptoms and results as well as I could. His comment was very interesting, but I'm sure this man is done drinking. He has just returned from a 3 months leave of absence, has taken a cure, looks fine, and to clinch the matter, the board of directors told him this was his last chance. The only answer I could make was that if the man followed the usual pattern, he would go on a bigger bust than ever. I felt this was inevitable and wondered if the bank was doing the man any injustice. Why not bring him into contact with some of our alcoholic crowd? He might have a chance. I pointed out that I had nothing to drink whatever for 3 years, and this in the face of difficulties that would have made 9 out of 10 men drink their heads off. Why not at least afford him an opportunity to hear my story? Oh no, said my friend. This chap is either through with liquor or he is minus a job. If he has your will, power, and guts, he will make the grade. I wanted to throw up my hands in discouragement, for I saw that I had failed to help my banker friend understand. He simply could not believe that his brother executive suffered from a serious illness. There was nothing to do but wait. Presently, the man did slip and was fired. Following his discharge, we contacted him. Without much ado, he accepted the principles and procedure that had helped us. He is undoubtedly on the road to recovery. To me, this incident illustrates lack of understanding as to what really ails the alcoholic, and lack of knowledge as to what part employers might profitably take in salvaging their sick employees.
Thank you so much for your service tonight, Lisa. Well done. And folks, we are going right back to where Lisa started reading. The answers will come directly out of the book as I ask the questions. Just a reminder that the answers are one sentence unless otherwise specified, and one sentence answers are split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation. Tonight our batting order is going to be Kenny, Marilyn, Rick, William, Stephanie, Billy, Pinky, and Terry. So if you could all unmute, please, and stay unmuted until we are done with the section of it. Terry, you still need to unmute, and Pinky, you do as well. Oh, well, you got the kids, so I know you'll unmute as needed. Kenny, kicking it off, my friend. Good to see you tonight. And by the way, Shayna will be coming in with about 7 or 8 comments. To begin this chapter, Kenny, we are going to focus on whom?
Among many employers nowadays, we think of one member who has spent much of his life in the world of big business.
Thank you so much. And Marilyn, does he have extensive experience in placing and displacing employees?
He has hired and fired hundreds of men.
Thank you so much. And fireman in the house. Good to see you, my friend. From what viewpoint does he view alcoholics?
He knows the alcoholic as the employer sees him.
Thank you so much. And William, his view should prove helpful to whom?
This present views ought to prove exceptional, usually to the businessman anyway. But let him tell you.
And here's the first comment. Now for a piece of Hank's story.
Thank you so much, Shayna. And Stephanie, coming to you, sister. What was Hank's position?
I was at one time assistant manager of a corporation department employing 6,600 men.
Thank you so much. And Billy, welcome to the pickle party. One day, Hank's secretary informed him of what?
One day my secretary came in saying that Mr. B insisted on speaking with me. Do I go any further?
Nope, that's
Okay.
it. Thank you. And Pinky, coming to you. Hank's reply was?
I told her to say that I was not interested.
Thank you. And Pickle Chips, this one's coming to you. Of what had Hank warned this man?
I had warned him several times that he had but one more chance.
Thank you. Kenny, coming right back to the top of the order with you. What happened not long after that warning?
Not long afterwards, he had called me from Hartford on 2 successive days, so drunk he could hardly speak.
Thank you so much. And Marilyn, as a result, what did Hank tell him?
I'm sorry I lost my place.
Okay, we'll come back around to you and let you find it. Rick, will you take that question? As a result, what did Hank tell him?
I told him he was through finally and forever.
All right, thank you. William, Hank's secretary informed him that it was who?
My secretary returned me and said that was not Mr. B on the phone. It was Mr. B's brother. And he wished to give you a message.
Thank you. And Stephanie, while Hank expected to hear some begging for the old job, he was surprised to hear the brother say what? Read the rest of the paragraph, please.
I still expected a plea for clemency, but these words came through the receiver. I just wanted to tell you Paul jumped from a hotel window in Hartford last Saturday. He left us a note saying you were the best boss he ever had and that you were not to blame in any way.
Thank you. Billy, coming back to you now. Another time when Hank opened a letter, what fell out?
A newspaper clipping fell out.
Read the whole thing. Another time.
Oh, another time as I opened the letter, which lay on my desk, a newspaper clipping fell out.
Very good. Thank you. Sometimes the question and the answer parallel. And Pinky, coming back to you. What was the newspaper clipping?
It was the obituary of one of the best salesmen I had ever had.
Thank you so much. Pickle Chips, coming back to you. After a drinking binge, what had he done?
After 2 weeks of drinking, he had placed his toe on the trigger of a loaded shotgun. The barrel was in his mouth.
Thank you so much. And Kenny, coming right back to you, sir. What had Hank done with him shortly before?
I had discharged him for drinking 6 weeks before.
Thank you. Marilyn, in still another experience, Hank heard from whom?
Still another experience, a woman's voice came through faintly over long distance from Virginia.
Thank you so much. And Rick, what was the purpose for her call?
She wanted to know if her husband's company insurance was still in force.
Thank you. William, coming to you, sir. Why was she interested in knowing the answer to her question?
4 days before he had hanged himself in his woodshed.
Thank you. Stephanie, what had been Hank's experience with him?
I had been obliged to discharge him for drinking, though he was brilliant, alert, and one of the best organizers I've ever known.
Thank you. And Billy, what is one reason these men died?
There were 3 exceptional men lost to this world because I did not understand alcoholism as I do now.
Thank you. And Alyssa, what was the irony of all this?
What irony. I became an alcoholic myself.
Thank you. And Terry, what saved Hank from joining the 3 who had gone on before?
And but for the intervention of an understanding person. Oh, I might have followed in their footsteps.
There you go. Thank you. Kenny, 2-part question. A, What had Hank's alcoholism cost his employer, and B, why is that?
My downfall cost the business community unknown thousands of dollars, for it takes real money to train a man for an executive position.
Thank you, Marilyn. Is this thing uncommon?
This kind of waste goes on unabated.
Thank you. Rick, coming to you, my friend. What does our experience lead us to believe?
We think the business fabric is shot through with a situation which might be helped by better understanding all around.
Thank you. And William, what does almost every responsible employer feel?
Every modern employer feels a moral responsibility for the well-being of his health, and tries to meet these responsibilities.
Thank you. And Stephanie, have employers always treated alcoholics fairly?
That he has not always done so for the alcoholic is easily understood.
Thank you. Billy, to many employers, what does the alcoholic appear to be?
To him, the alcoholic has often seemed a fool of the first magnitude.
Thank you. Terry, if an employee had special talents or was a fair-haired boy, what would the employer sometimes do?
Because of the employee's special ability of his own strong personal attachment to him, the employer has sometimes kept such a man at work long beyond a reasonable period.
Thank you. Kenny, what have some employers tried?
Some employers have tried every known remedy.
Thank you. Marilyn, once in a while, there was lack of what?
In only a few instances, there had been a lack of patience and tolerance.
Thank you. Rick, coming to you. Looking back at the time when we were drinking, what can we say now?
And we who have imposed on the best of employers can scarcely blame them if they have been short with us.
Thank you, William. An example of that, an example is that an officer of a large bank who knows what?
Here's an instant. In a typical example, in the office of one of the largest banking institutions in America, knows I no longer drinks.
Thank you. And Steph, what did this officer share with Hank?
One day he told me about an executive of the same bank who, from his description, was undoubtedly alcoholic.
And Billy, it looked like an opportunity to help, so Hank did what?
This seemed to me like an opportunity to be helpful, so I spent 2 hours talking about alcoholism, the malady, and described the symptoms and results as well as I could.
Thank you so much. And Pinky Pickles, it's back to you. What was his comment? Read the rest of the paragraph, please.
His comment was, very interesting, but I'm sure this man is done drinking. He has just returned from a 3-month leave of absence, has taken a cure, looks fine, and to clinch the matter, the board of directors told him this was his last chance.
Thank you. And Pickle Chips, Hank had only one answer, and it was what? 2 sentences, please.
The only answer I could make was that if the man followed the usual pattern, he would go on bigger busts than ever. I felt this was inevitable and wondered if the bank was doing the man an injustice.
And I have another comment.
Do detoxes and treatment centers guarantee sobriety?
We think not. Kenny, coming back to you, what did Hank ask for?
Why not bring him into contact with some of the of our alcoholic crowd?
Thank you. And Marilyn, what good might that do?
He might have a chance.
And another comment. Could being introduced to the program of action outlined in this book bring about permanent and lasting sobriety?
And Fireman, it's back to you, brother. What did Hank point out to the executive?
I pointed out that I had nothing to drink, whatever, for 3 years. And this is the face, and this in the face of difficulties that would have made 9 out of 10 men drink their heads off.
Thank you. William, what did Hank then ask?
Why not at least afford him an opportunity to hear my story?
And another comment. Is Hank trying to do 12-step work of one alcoholic working with another? This is also the 6th tenet of the Oxford Group, page 263. Continued work with other alcoholics, which the group followed before the 12 steps were written. It is also following the directions in chapter 7, working with others.
Thank you. Stephanie, the man's reply was what? Please read the rest of the paragraph.
Oh no, said my friend, this chap is either through with liquor or he is minus a job. If he has your willpower and guts, he will make the grade.
Yes. Let's go to chapter 3 on that. Billy, what did Hank do then and why?
I wanted to throw up my hands, oh goodness, in discouragement, for I saw that I had failed to help my banker friend understand.
Thank you. And Pickle Chips, what was the executive unable to believe?
He simply could not believe that his brother executive suffered from a serious illness.
And another comment. Does the Herbert Spencer quote from Appendix 2, Spiritual Experience, apply here? Contempt prior to investigation.
Kenny, coming back to you, my friend. What was Hank's only choice?
There was nothing to do but wait.
And Marilyn, what did happen to the man? 2 sentences, please.
Presently, the man did slip and was fired. Following his discharge, we contacted him.
Thank you. And Fireman, did he have much difficulty accepting our program?
Without much ado, he accepted the principles and procedure that had helped us.
Thank you. And William, he is on the road to what?
He's undoubtedly on the road to recovery.
And I have another comment. Is this evidence that we do recover and overcome the spiritual malady by thoroughly following our path? Page 58.
Thank you. And Steph, you get the final question of the night, and the answer is... Oh, wait, let me do this first. Let me ask the question. What 2 important things did this illustrate? And the answer is...
To me, this incident illustrates lack of understanding as to what really ails the alcoholic, and lack of knowledge as to what part employers might profitably take in salvaging their sick employees.
Excellent, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your service tonight. Everybody can remute, and now it is time for sharing questions, comments, observation, experience, spiritual experience. We want to hear from you. because this is your meeting. So the floor is open. Just raise your hand and I'll call you in. And if you don't know how to raise your hand, just wave at me in the screen. Shayna, come on in, sister.
Ooh, thank you. Shayna, alcoholic, recovered alcoholic. Quite a bit in this chapter. And I don't know that I've ever heard it this way. Definitely read it, but I don't think I heard or absorbed it exactly the same way. Because I can relate to the three stories. Not necessarily for my own, but I, obviously because I'm still here, but I did have a situation where my employer, I'm fairly certain my employer knew, my direct colleagues very much had some sort of awareness that something was going on, but they didn't exactly say, they knew it was alcohol or what. And they did have somewhat of an intervention. That they just kind of said, we're worried about you, we think there's something going on. But they couldn't really say what. And I remember pretty much just denying everything, but later, after I took some time off, went to rehab, that whole thing, because it finally did come to a head. When I came back, my job was still there, and I'm pretty sure that my mom spoke to my boss and said, hey, she's going to be on leave because she's at, rehab and this and that. But when I came back, she was very open and said, your job is still here. And it wasn't until I had to sit in her office and kind of face her. And I think the only reason that I still held my job was because she was a member of Al-Anon. She had never shared that with me until that point. But she said she understood the disease and she was very familiar. I don't know, she never told me exactly who the alcoholic was. But I think that kind of speaks words and I don't even know what the word is, but the fact that she was able to understand, and I remember when I was kind of going down the drain, she asked me to come and talk to her, and I wouldn't because I was like, oh no, she's gonna know, or she's gonna drug test me. But I wonder what her conversation would have been. And I do know of a personal experience. I don't know if it was just alcoholism, if there were other mental health issues, but I worked alongside somebody that did end up like one of the folks in the story that ended their life. And I wondered, if they ever said anything. Or if anybody ever really knew, because it was very off. Kind of like we didn't expect it. But maybe if we were looking, I don't know. Anyhow, furthermore into it, I appreciate the way that this was written. It grabs the attention so quickly in the beginning, because at first I was like, wait, who's writing this? And then it shares Hank's own story. And then to be the person that he's trying to explain to one of his colleagues there about the alcoholic, the alcoholism, the disease. And even after 2 hours in explaining the spiritual malady, still not being able to get through. I feel like that happens often in today's society still, especially in the business that I'm in. Alcoholism is, or substance abuse, or I'll just call it alcoholism. It's very stigmatized. Oh no, I forgot about the timer. I'll hurry up.
That's
but,
okay.
It's so stigmatized that it's like, ooh, keep hush. But I will say in the upcoming, I would say the past year or two, I have noticed that it's like, hey, if you see something, say something. It's trying not to be as much of a penalty, but to offer up solutions for help. I don't know exactly how well that's been working, but I think, in the practice and in the field that I'm in, I do often see, recommendations from providers that suggest community meetings. So I thought that's a step in the right direction, at least. Okay, that's all I've got now. Sorry.
That's okay. No need to be sorry, sweetie. It's just a guideline. And Fireman, good to see you, brother. Come on in.
Hello, everyone. Rick Alcoholic. It's good to be here. I do like to drop in on you when I can. This chapter here was probably my first lost chapter that I felt didn't apply to me, but as time went on, I realized how I could help others with it. In my career, in 1985, my first detox and rehab, and that I did not want to go to, I felt I didn't need to go to, I did, and when I came out of the rehab, I went up to headquarters and they asked me, how you doing? Good. You okay now? Yeah. What do you want to do? You want to go back to your company, or do you want to go elsewhere? I said, no, I want to go back to my company, and I did. I never got any questions or anything from anybody. Where you been? What's happening? How you doing? It was like it never happened, and I really liked that. Today, I know others knew because I'm retired now, and so many also, and we talk. We talk from time to time, and I get this response to this day. If he has your willpower and guts, he will make the grade. I get the slap on the back. We're proud of you, Rick, that you. And I try to tell him that I feel that it's because of God and His program that I sit where I am today. Even with my family, as I just celebrated another year, my son's in that same career. Proud of your dad, love the way you keep on enjoying what you're doing, and because I can't do it without this program, and I don't want to even try. But what really gets me is in the beginning, the 3 gentlemen who were gone because of suicide. I know 5 others, not through suicide, but because they're continuing to drink. 1 died right after he signed his retirement papers. 1 died within his first year of retirement. And then the other 3 just were found dead. And guys I knew, and every one of them entered burning buildings with each and every one of those cats. And But I sit here today because I know it was God carrying me throughout my many years, and I sit here today. Today, I know it's because it's the path that's been presented to me, and being told to I keep thoroughly following this path. I stay on this path. It's given me the kind of life that I thought I would have to hit the lottery to enjoy the life I have today. Well, I have the kind of life I have today without trying to design it with winning the lottery. God has taken care of that. He didn't make me any richer. I'm just more comfortable in life today. So today, the lost chapters have been found, but this one here, I remember seeing it and reading it my first month. Wasn't like that for me. My last 2 detoxes, I came to AA in 2008, went through another detox, 2009, another detox. Both times I had vacation time, so I asked for some vacation time and put my butt in detoxes. Figured nobody would know. Anyways, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Good to see you. Billy, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi, everybody. I'm an alcoholic. My name happens to be Billy. And that's my biggest problem. Not my name. I love reading this chapter. It is such a refresher for me to be humble and remember from whence I came. I wanted to get sent to the psych ward because I knew I was crazier than a bedbug. But my favorite judge didn't want to send me to rehab or to the loony bin. She wanted to change my zip code to a much louder, less interesting location. And I didn't want to be the first woman in my family to go to jail. I didn't think that was very honorable. So, but I was willing to go to any lengths to not go to jail. So my roommate said, well, let's go get you into some therapy. I worked in the restaurant industry. I can't even count the number of workmates that did 14 and 28-day spin drive cycles in rehabs in the restaurant industry. And what's really interesting is the last place I worked, half of us were in the rooms. Most of us were in some form of therapy at the time. And the owners were wonderful. I don't know, they just got it. They understood. And so sometimes when they had to cover a shift and things were insane, they would come out into the kitchen and they would look at all of us on the line and they would say, okay, we need someone to cover a shift, but here's the rules. If you haven't been to a meeting in the past 4 days, or you have therapy scheduled, or you need a babysitter, you cannot volunteer. I've buried 2 sponsees. That was painful. They had problems other than alcoholism. And I frequently, when they would call me and life was in an uproar and whatnot, and I would say, what does your therapist say? When's the last time you went to therapy? Because I'm not a therapist and I don't play one on TV. So we need to get your therapist involved in on this. And one of them, I was sitting in a room one night in a meeting. It had not quite started yet, and my phone rang, and I answered it, and it was one of my sponsees, and I guess she didn't know who she was calling, because the first thing I heard was, "Hey, I need some orange. Got any orange? I need to get some." And I kind of went, "Well, I mean, if you need some fruit for your kids or whatever, I'll run some up, but I just got into a meeting, so they'll have to wait till the meeting's over. Why don't you come to the meeting and we'll chat?" And then she hung up on me, and then she called me back like minutes later. So she got a hold of whatever drug it was she was looking for, and she used it, and she drove, and she had a bad accident, and she was brain damaged as a result of the car accident. I use that term very loosely because I have a choice. We all have a choice to save our own lives, and it just still breaks my heart. Another one, also problems other than alcohol. And she tore her house apart to get into the gun safe. Hers had been removed from her possession, but her boyfriend wouldn't listen to us when we told him maybe he should put his somewhere else. Well, she figured out how to break into that gun safe, and she blew her brains out in their bedroom. AA is optional, and I choose the option of working this program in I ask for God, okay, because that's what I was taught. I can't, he can, I better let him. Thanks.
Thank you, Billy. Glad to have you. Thanks for joining us tonight. William, come on in, my brother.
Good evening to everybody. My name is William Alcoholic. And then when we read this, I'm always amazed at the PR, the public relationship that they had during the time when they wrote this book, so as you look back at it, and they wrote the book, it's with alcoholic, the family after, Eleanor, to the wives, every place in the employee where we're at today, every place that the alcoholic was, they put this book there so people could understand that alcoholism, judges, doctors, everywhere they placed, so they could understand it, because people was clueless about it, And the other thing happened was I got instant gratification when they were talking about the first three guys, that lost their life because they had no solution to their problem. And great people, they was very responsible in other areas, but when it came to alcoholism, really no understanding, because I could identify with that, And I thank God for AA. I thank God for my employer. I thought about committing suicide a lot of times. I didn't know anything about alcoholism, none of this. I just knew something was wrong, with me. But I couldn't put my hand on it. I had a lot of insurance. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I had good job, good insurance and stuff on it. But I never understood. And one of the things I think it was, I couldn't put my finger on what was wrong with me during the time, I had a lot of reasons, but it never was alcoholism, My mother and father had died when I was 2 years of age, I blame a whole lot of people, the people who were around me when I was growing up, because of what it was, and I truly couldn't be honest about alcoholism. So, when we were reading this chapter, even though it was death involved in the three people, that he was talking about, some have to die for others to live, and that's just the way it is. I thank God that I was spared that, and I came to a place where I could learn and do something about what I did. And I like the way Hank did whenever he went and tried to help the guy, the bank and the executive bank and stuff, you know. I mean, and not only Hank did, Bill did the same thing. He tried to help people. Everybody did the space over, you know. And the way they try to do threats to alcohol, you know, if he do it again, I'm going to fire him. He should have willpower, you know. These things should be able to do it. I thought I had all of that, you know, because in my life, into other world, material side of my life, I maintained employment. I maintained some good things in my life and stuff. But when it came to alcohol, I just didn't know what to do with that. And I said a lot of times, I remember being away at rehab, and one of my counselors was talking to me. I said, I got willpower. I said, I could stay away from this 3 years. First, I started out with 6 months, and I went all the way up to 3 years, telling my counselor I could stay away from it. 3 years. And I have done not that long, but I have done stop drinking long enough to catch my bills up. Then I go back and drink again and pull it down on top of me, you know. But when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, I tell you how I got here. Right? I worked at a safety sensitive job, you know, and they sent a memo around. I had a top secret clearance when I was in the military because I didn't know how to tell nobody this one. So they sent a memo around. I still remember like yesterday. If you have a problem with alcohol or drugs, call your UAP and management won't know anything about it. But that was one of my fears, that I was going to lose my job. Yeah. So that gave me the incentive to go and try to do something for myself. Yeah. And whenever I went down there and talked to this guy, it so happened to be, he was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. And me and him was talking one-on-one. And somehow I opened up and I was honest about him, honest about what was going on with me and stuff, right? And he said to me, hey, you're a very sick person. What? I was an athlete, played footballs, all kind of sports and stuff, and sort of did good in those areas and stuff. When he said sick, I equated to my physical ability, you know. I didn't know it was my mental that he was talking about. So I got a resentment at him. And I remember just like this thing, he was a little small Caucasian guy. He did his hand like that. He said, wait a minute. Oh, boy, I have to finish this story next week. Anyhow, he said, wait a minute, we're going to help you. And that's the first time I was sent away to a rehab, and they was talking about alcoholism. And that was in 1989. So I'm grateful today that I'm a sober person, you know, and I know about alcoholism, and I can help other people too. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Glad you are with us tonight, Donald. Before you come in, hang on, because C had their hand up and dropped it. C, would you like to come in and share with us? This is your first time with us tonight.
Yeah, my name is Cody, and I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, this has really touched, I guess, a nerve with me. The whole losing a job type thing, and that's currently where I'm at. Like I'm staring at $5 worth of dimes that's, you know, rolled into one of those little bankroll things, and that's all the money that I have. And I worked in healthcare, so we're talking a lot about like doctors and, you know, not going to hospitals. And, you know, that was one of my first thoughts when I was sober at the time, was to like see if maybe I could open up something, like a room, you know, just for AA members to go into a hospital. But the more that I was realizing how much of a bad idea that was, like I heard other people speaking on it, and definitely following in the big book. It gets very difficult because I lost my job in healthcare yet again because I ended up getting COVID and yeah, I was out for a week, and all they needed was for me to have a negative test result and for me to like have a piece of paper saying I'm negative for COVID. And I went in and I tried to get tested, and the nurse that came into the room to test me actually did not test me because he said, oh, you had it Monday, you were positive for it Monday, and now it's Saturday, so it's been 5 days, so it's fine. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I need this negative test result, for them to be able to prove that I just didn't have the fucking virus anymore. And yeah, I ended up losing my job over it. And I wasn't well off as it was. And yeah, kind of losing traction here, but yeah, it's really difficult to put your faith in those people that are supposed to be there for you. Yet, my job used to be as a medical lab technician, so like I basically run the tests and then tell the doctors what was up, and then usually they would call me being like, oh, what does this mean by being positive or negative, or what is this or that, and I'd have to explain it to them. And I think I've lost faith in my career. Oh, I don't have my camera on, I'm sorry. Let's see. Anyway, no, I'm running out of time. But yeah, it's just very difficult because I don't know what to do anymore. So that's my time. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And sobriety will offer you an incredibly wonderful way of life. So just keep coming back, keep joining us. You are welcome to join us anytime at all. Hey, Grand Elf, come on in.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Donald, other known as Gandalf or Grand Elf, the Red Pickle, and I am a grateful recovered but not cured alcoholic. I will have this disease until the day that I die, and probably then some. But, I know what this disease does to us. Working with H&I and going back into the institutions, where you actually get to talk to some of the residents and stuff like that. You get to know them over time. And, over the last 2.5 years, well, actually over the last 2 years since I've been doing it, I've known 5 people that went back out after going through the program. So, and they did not survive. And it's disheartening and stuff, them, you know, what this program is all about, that it is like that. And, you know, if you're contemplating and stuff, you know, it's just a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And everything that we do in here is we put in our toolbox, you know, so that we can combat any of those urges that might pop up at any time. But we're not impervious to these things, you know, because people, even with 20, 30 years of sobriety, still go out. And they just give up on the program. And, you know, it even states in one of our stories in the big book, you know, after 25 years, you know, within 4 years or a few years, he drank himself to death after he retired. You know, that's a time that we're supposed to enjoy our golden years and do what we wanted to do during the time that we were working. But this disease is deadly. Not just to ourselves, but to other people. Especially, you know, we drink and drive. And I know that one firsthand. And I do know that alcoholism is looked differently upon these days. It's starting to take mainstream as a disease instead of a self-will run riot. Courts are looking differently at people with drinking disorders and mental health also, and I'm grateful for it. But I do know that I wish I would have had some help, some intervention back whenever I was 20 years old, 21 years old, before I had a chance to see all the things that I was going to do in my drinking career. And life would be different. A lot of other people's lives would be different. So that's all I've got for this evening. And God bless you guys. And thanks for a wonderful book study. And thank you guys.
Thank you, brother. Glad you're here. Xavier, come on in.
Hey, Xavier, recovered alcoholic. Sorry, I just parked. But you guys can see me. Not really. Shoot. So glad to be here. Just went to an in-person meeting as well. Some double dipping, which was always really sweet. So I remember reading this chapter years ago. It was like 6.5 years ago. At the time, I had been sober for like 2-3 years. And then I had this, I think it was a 9-day bender. I was working for a judge in a small town, and the judge ran this drug and alcohol court. And she seemed really empathetic towards people that were like an addiction. And I used to have really fun talks with her because I was a member of AA. And, she was a normie. And then when I disappeared for 9 days, she was really mad at me. And then she wanted to fire me after that. And we agreed I would leave 30 days later. And I remember, being upset that upset that a boss that would run drug and alcohol court would not be understanding that her one and only law clerk decided to disappear for 9 days to go on a bender. It was interesting that this was the first chapter. I went through like a 2 or 3 day withdrawal, and this was the first chapter when I went to a meeting, so it's always stuck out to me. And my experience is on the side where I was let go. When I look at my mistakes, she had every right to. At the end of the day, I was drinking. And on the other side, now that I'm an employer, I've hired and fired plenty of people from the program. And I find that it truly is just a mix, just like with normies. I have a few members of the program that I work with that are just incredible employees. I've had people that I've worked with that are in the program that are an absolute nightmare. to work with. So I used to have more biases of like pros or cons. Now I've found it literally doesn't matter. It just depends on the individual. So, but it is fun to read about, and it's always interesting to reread this chapter with a new, fresh set of eyes. So that's all I got. I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Glad you're with us tonight. I'm going to jump in before we close out. Hi, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful, recovered alcoholic. And a couple of things about this. I appreciate that since Hank did not die sober, that they left this chapter in the book, because that's very important. And a little history on Hank Parkhurst. He was also instrumental in getting the book to publishing. Him and Jim Burwell. So it's part of our history. I also see, Larry will be familiar with this, and any of you who have worked in the service structure or assembly or been on committees, I can also see where there's a little bit of our cooperation with professional community in this as well, and public information, which I think is pretty cool. I've been on all sides of this, folks. I have been the employee who was the drunk. I have been a supervisor of other employees while drinking. I have been a sober supervisor of others. And it's, even when I was drinking, it was hard to have to let people go. But I mean, when you're operating heavy machinery that can take your whole arm off in about a tenth of a second, and someone is obviously extremely intoxicated, you know, you give them warnings first, you send them home, tell them to get help. But if they don't do that, sometimes there's absolutely no choice whatsoever. And in that case, I was watching out for the employer. Felt a little hypocritical since I was drinking and doing a whole lot of non-conference approved substances as well, and operating that same machinery. However, being sober and in that situation, there again, then I had the program to carry with me, and I had a solution for them. But you know, you can't make people want the solution. You know, death is a sad, tragic thing. I have lost many friends in sobriety, some of them extremely, extremely close to me. Some died sober, some didn't. Little story about when I was about 2 years sober, there was this gentleman who had started coming back to meetings, hadn't been around for a while, 25 years sober. He was still sober, but he just hadn't come to meetings, and he hadn't been sharing. And for a week or two, he came to meetings and he's sharing. And one night after a meeting, he went home and ate a bullet. It's a tragic ending and a permanent solution for temporary problems, because all the problems in life are temporary. You know, even when we have health problems, we find ways of dealing with them, especially if we can deal with them spiritually. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was on a mission to die. You know, death by the end of the day was my solution, and yet somehow that same very day I ended up in a detox, and I've been here ever since. This chapter has so much to offer us, and so much wisdom and experience. And there's a lot of people in Alcoholics Anonymous, crusty old curmudgeons as I love to refer to them, that believe that the program is over with at page 103, but it's not. All three of these lost chapters are about us practicing our program of recovery in the places where we live, where we work, where we play, with the people who matter the most to us, our wives, husbands, significant others, whatever you want to call it, our family, and in our workplace and our co-workers. So this absolutely does matter. I have to remember, as I read our literature, especially this book, is for me not to come from a place of judgment, but to try and be in a place of remaining teachable. Because if I'm not teachable, I'm not going to be able to help another one of God's kids on this planet. And it's a beautiful journey, and I'm glad that you are all here. And I appreciate all of you and love all of you dearly. And Shayna, would you like to read us out? Or I don't see Shayna. Trish, are you doing it? Oh, there's Shayna. Never mind. She's hiding in the dark. Are you able to read that? I can see you glowing. Or would you like Trish to? You have no audio, Shayna.
There we go.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yay! No, we are fine. I was very prepared. Okay. From page 164, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we only know a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as we tread the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you. Until then.
Thank you, Shayna. And everybody, let's give Shayna a big hand. Tonight ends her 13-week rotation. So thank you so much for coming in and doing this with us. We appreciate you. And
we're very grateful. Thank you.
You are most welcome. And we will close out in typical primary purpose fashion. We can't circle up and hold hands like we do in meetings, but we certainly hold our hands up in the screen. And it's just another way of connecting. And after a moment of silence for those who are still sick and suffering, you know, we all know somebody we haven't seen in a while. Let's pray for them. Maybe reach out to them, because the life you save might be your own. So after a moment of silence, we will close out with the Lord's Prayer. Here's your moment. Thank you. Who will take us from shame to grace if we let Him? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in the heavens. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
It works if we let it.
Thank you, folks. Everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.